Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. It's an honor to share this moment with you. When we talk about smart women, I want to clarify something up front. Intelligence isn't just about what we know, but how we navigate the world, how we show up, how we stay grounded, and how we honor ourselves and others. Smart women are not born with some secret power. They build their strength, their wisdom, their resilience through the rules they choose to live by. So let's talk about the 7 rules that can guide us, uplift us, and remind us of the profound power we hold. Embracing vulnerability is one of the most powerful things we can do, though it's often one of the hardest. In a world that prizes strength, resilience, and invincibility, showing up as our true selves with all our imperfections can feel risky. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. We're taught that being vulnerable means weakness, and so we spend so much of our lives hiding our true feelings, pretending to be something we're not, and putting on a brave face, even when we're struggling. But the reality is, vulnerability is the birthplace of everything meaningful in our lives. It's where connection, creativity, and courage are born. When we talk about vulnerability, we're not talking about being passive or being open in ways that leave us exposed to harm. Vulnerability is the willingness to show up, to be seen, to take risks despite the possibility of failure, rejection, or judgment. It's the choice to share our thoughts, our feelings, and our dreams, even when we feel afraid or uncertain. It's the willingness to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers, that we are still growing, and that we are all imperfect in some way. For many women, vulnerability is particularly difficult because society often pressures us to be perfect. We are told that we should be everything: strong, capable, independent, successful, and that to be vulnerable is to show weakness. We may feel like we need to constantly prove ourselves, to appear like we have it all together, even when inside we feel overwhelmed, lost, or unsure. But this pressure to be perfect is exhausting. It prevents us from experiencing true connection with others and from growing as individuals. When we hide behind a mask of perfection, we rob ourselves of the opportunity to be seen and understood for who we truly are. Vulnerability is what allows us to connect deeply with others. When we open ourselves up, when we show the parts of ourselves that are messy, imperfect, and real, we invite others to do the same. It's through these authentic connections that we find true belonging. And belonging is a need we all have. It's not just about being physically present in a group, but about feeling seen, heard, and valued for who we are. We can't experience this kind of connection unless we are willing to be vulnerable, to share our true selves without the fear of judgment or rejection. But vulnerability isn't just about connecting with others, it's also about creating space for personal growth. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we are opening ourselves up to learning and evolving. Vulnerability creates the conditions in which we can explore new ideas, try new things, and make mistakes without the fear of failure. It allows us to take risks and step out of our comfort zones, knowing that even if we fall, we have the opportunity to rise again. This is where true growth happens, when we are willing to risk looking foolish or being misunderstood, knowing that each experience, even the uncomfortable ones, has something to teach us. The courage to be vulnerable also helps us develop resilience. When we face challenges, whether personal or professional, it's easy to let fear stop us in our tracks. But vulnerability means we choose to face those challenges head on, even when we don't have all the answers. It means being open to the possibility of failure, but continuing to move forward anyway. When we embrace vulnerability, we acknowledge that failure is not the end of the road. It's simply a part of the process. It's a lesson that teaches us how to be more resourceful, how to pivot when necessary, and how to keep going when things get tough. Moreover, vulnerability is the foundation of creativity. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we let go of the need for perfection. We give ourselves permission to explore, to experiment, and to make mistakes without the fear of judgment. Creativity thrives in environments where people feel safe enough to share their ideas, to ask questions, and to make mistakes without fear of criticism. The best ideas often come from moments of vulnerability, when we're willing to take risks and let our creativity flow without constraints. Vulnerability also requires self-compassion. It's about recognizing that we are worthy of love, even when we don't have it all together. It's about being gentle with ourselves when we're struggling or when we fall short of our own expectations. This self-compassion is crucial because it's not easy to be vulnerable. We all face moments when we feel exposed, uncertain, or afraid. But the more we practice self-compassion, the more we allow ourselves to be imperfect, the more we create an environment where vulnerability can flourish. At the heart of vulnerability is a deep trust in ourselves and in others. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we are telling the world that we trust ourselves enough to show up authentically without pretense. And when we trust others to receive us without judgment, we create deeper, more meaningful relationships. Vulnerability is the bridge between isolation and connection. It's what allows us to build communities that are based on understanding and empathy rather than judgment and perfection. Ultimately, vulnerability is about embracing our humanity. It's about recognizing that we are not invincible, that we have weaknesses, that we have fears, and that we have room to grow. It's about being okay with not having all the answers, not always being strong, and not always being perfect. When we embrace vulnerability, we give ourselves the freedom to be human, to live fully, to love deeply, and to experience all the beauty and complexity of life without the constant pressure to appear flawless. So let's choose vulnerability. Let's choose to show up as our true selves, to be seen in our rawness, to step into the unknown with courage, and to let our imperfections shine. Because it's through vulnerability that we find the courage to live the lives we are meant to live. Owning your story is one of the most empowering choices you can make, yet it's often one of the most challenging. For so many of us, especially as women, we are taught to be humble, to downplay our accomplishments, and to hide our struggles. We're encouraged to conform to societal expectations, to be the version of ourselves that others want to see. But when we choose to own our story, we step into our authentic selves, we reclaim our power, and we break free from the limitations placed upon us by the world around us. Our stories, both the triumphs and the struggles, are uniquely ours, and they are the foundation of who we are. The process of owning your story begins with acknowledging every part of it. So often, we try to hide the parts of ourselves that we think are messy or broken. We bury our past, our mistakes, our insecurities, and the parts of our journey that we wish had gone differently. Yet it's exactly these parts of our story that have shaped us, taught us, and built our resilience. To own your story means to stop running from it and to stop feeling ashamed of it. It's about accepting that everything you've gone through, every hardship you've faced, every failure, and every success is a crucial part of your narrative. It's this raw authenticity that makes you whole. We often shy away from our stories because we fear judgment or rejection. We worry that others will see us as weak or unworthy if we reveal too much of ourselves. But when we choose to embrace our stories, we allow ourselves to be seen. This act of vulnerability is powerful. It allows us to connect with others in a deep and meaningful way. It reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles, and it allows others to feel seen in their own experience. Our stories, imperfect as they may be, are the threads that bind us to each other. When we share our truth, we create space for others to share theirs. This connection is one of the most powerful forces in the world, and it's only possible when we own our stories. Owning your story also means taking responsibility for how it unfolds. It's easy to blame external factors for where we find ourselves in life, whether it's the choices of others, our circumstances, or the things we cannot control. While we cannot change the past or erase the pain we may have experienced, we do have control over how we respond to those events. We can choose how we allow our past to shape our present and our future. By owning your story, you take back control of your narrative. You stop being a passive participant in your own life and instead become an active creator of your own future. It's about saying, this is my story, and I'm the one who gets to decide how it's written from this moment forward. There is also a sense of freedom in owning your story. The more we hide from who we truly are, the more we feel weighed down by the expectations and pressures of others. We may feel like we are living in a constant state of performance, pretending to be someone we're not, or trying to fit into a mold that wasn't designed for us. But when we take ownership of our story, we release the need to conform. We stop seeking approval from others because we no longer feel like we need to prove ourselves. We come to understand that we are enough, just as we are. Owning our story allows us to be free from the fear of judgment, the desire for perfection, and the need to be something we're not. We can live authentically and with confidence, knowing that our true selves are more than enough. There's also a profound sense of healing that comes from owning your story. For many of us, the past may hold painful memories. We may have experienced trauma, loss, or betrayal. These experiences can leave deep scars, and we may spend a long time avoiding them or trying to erase them from our minds. But when we own our story, we allow ourselves to process these painful moments, to heal and to move forward. It's through the act of confronting our past that we find the strength to overcome it. We can choose to view our struggles not as a reflection of our worth, but as opportunities for growth. When we own our story, we begin to see that our wounds don't define us. They are simply a part of our journey, and they are what make us human. Moreover, owning your story isn't just about looking backward. It's about looking forward. It's about setting intentions for the future and knowing that you have the power to shape your path moving forward. By embracing your past, you create the space for new chapters to be written. Every day is an opportunity to add to your story in ways that are meaningful and authentic to you. Owning your story means living intentionally, making choices that align with your values, and not letting fear or doubt hold you back from pursuing what truly matters to you. When you own your story, you also give others permission to do the same. The world is full of women who feel silenced, who feel like their stories don't matter or that they are not worthy of being heard. But when we step into our power, when we own our truths, we become role models for those around us. We show others that it's okay to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to experience pain, and to still be worthy of love, respect, and success. By owning your story, you not only empower yourself, but also inspire others to embrace their own journeys. Ultimately, owning your story is an act of self-love and self-respect. It's about acknowledging that every part of you, your experiences, your choices, your triumphs, and your failures, makes you who you are. It's about saying that you are worthy of being seen, worthy of being heard, and worthy of living your life authentically. When you own your story, you stop apologizing for who you are and begin living with purpose and confidence. You realize that you are the author of your own life, and that power is yours to wield. By embracing every part of your journey, you set yourself free to live fully and to create the future you deserve. Setting boundaries is one of the most crucial skills we can develop, yet it's often one of the hardest to implement. As women, we are frequently conditioned to put the needs of others before our own, to nurture, to care, to please, and to make sure everyone around us is happy. This deep-seated cultural expectation can make it incredibly difficult to say no or to assert our own needs. But setting boundaries isn't selfish or mean. It's an essential act of self-respect and self-preservation. Boundaries allow us to maintain our sense of self, protect our energy, and preserve our well-being. At its core, a boundary is simply a limit that we set for ourselves and others. It's a way of defining what is acceptable behavior, what we are willing to tolerate, and what we need in order to feel safe, valued, and respected. Boundaries are not just about saying no. They are also about knowing when to say yes and being intentional about how we invest our time, energy, and emotional resources. Setting boundaries means that we are conscious of our own needs and actively choose to honor them, even when doing so may make others uncomfortable or challenge the status quo. One of the most common challenges women face when setting boundaries is the fear of rejection or guilt. We worry that saying no will make us seem rude, unkind, or unhelpful. We fear disappointing others or letting them down, especially those we love or care for. This fear is often compounded by the belief that we must always be available to others, or that our worth is tied to our ability to serve or please others. But this belief is not only untrue, it is also harmful. Constantly saying yes at the expense of our own needs can lead to burnout, resentment, and feelings of being overwhelmed. By failing to set boundaries, we deny ourselves the time and space to care for our own well-being, which ultimately affects our ability to show up as our best selves for others. The truth is, setting boundaries is an act of love, not only for ourselves, but also for the people around us. When we set clear boundaries, we create healthier, more balanced relationships. We teach others how to treat us with respect and consideration. Boundaries allow us to maintain our autonomy and preserve our sense of identity, while also ensuring that we are not taken for granted or overwhelmed by the demands of others. Without boundaries, relationships can become one-sided, and we risk losing ourselves in the process. But with boundaries, we can create a space where both parties feel respected, valued, and heard. Setting boundaries also requires a deep understanding of our own values and priorities. What do we need in order to feel safe, supported, and fulfilled? What are the things that drain us, that leave us feeling depleted or resentful? These are important questions to ask ourselves as we begin the process of setting boundaries. Boundaries are not rigid walls that separate us from others. They are flexible, personalized guidelines that reflect our individual needs, preferences, and limits. For example, some people may need a lot of alone time to recharge, while others may need more social interaction. Some may need clear communication, while others may prefer space to process their thoughts. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to boundaries. It's about tuning into our own needs and making choices that support our physical, emotional, and mental health. In addition to understanding our own needs, setting boundaries also involves communicating them clearly and assertively. Often we assume that others should just know our limits or that they will respect our needs without us having to say anything, but this is rarely the case. People can't read our minds, and it's our responsibility to express our boundaries in a way that is clear, direct, and respectful. This can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if we've spent years accommodating others or avoiding conflict. But the more we practice setting boundaries, the easier it becomes to communicate our needs with confidence and clarity. It's important to remember that boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about taking control of our own lives. We cannot dictate how others behave, but we can decide how we will respond to their behavior. Setting boundaries empowers us to take responsibility for our own well-being and to make choices that are aligned with our values. It also allows us to protect our time and energy so that we can show up as our best selves in all areas of our lives. When we have healthy boundaries, we are better able to contribute to the world around us in a meaningful way because we have the space and energy to do so. Another essential aspect of setting boundaries is learning to honor them ourselves. It's not enough to simply tell others what we need. We must also follow through on those commitments. If we say no to an invitation because we need time to rest, we must respect that decision and avoid the temptation to give in to guilt or pressure. Similarly, if we set a boundary around our work-life balance, we must honor that boundary by not allowing work to spill over into our personal time. Consistently honoring our boundaries reinforces their importance and helps us build a sense of self-trust. It also sets a positive example for others, showing them that it's okay to prioritize our own well-being. In some cases, setting boundaries may lead to discomfort or even conflict. There may be people in our lives who resist our boundaries or who try to push past them. This can be especially difficult if we have been accustomed to saying yes to everything or putting others' needs first. However, it's important to remember that setting boundaries is a form of self-respect, and it's not something we should apologize for. We are not responsible for how others react to our boundaries. Our only responsibility is to communicate our needs clearly and to honor them, even when it feels difficult. Finally, setting boundaries is a practice that evolves over time. Our needs change as we grow and our boundaries may shift as we enter different phases of life. It's important to be flexible and adaptable as we continue to learn what works best for us. Boundaries are not set in stone. They are dynamic and they require ongoing attention and adjustment. The more we practice setting boundaries, the more comfortable we become with asserting our needs and respecting our limits. Ultimately, setting boundaries is not about being rigid or uncompromising. It's about creating a life that reflects our values, honors our needs, and allows us to thrive. Boundaries protect our time, our energy, and our well-being, and they allow us to engage in relationships and experiences that are fulfilling and meaningful. By setting and respecting our boundaries, we take charge of our own lives and ensure that we are living authentically and with intention. Being kind to yourself is one of the most important acts of self-care, yet it's often the one that's most neglected. We live in a world that encourages us to be constantly striving for more success, more achievements, more perfection. In this environment, it's easy to fall into the trap of being excessively critical of ourselves. We look in the mirror and focus on our flaws. We measure our worth by how well we meet the expectations of others, and we constantly chase after unattainable standards of success. But the truth is, we cannot truly thrive or experience lasting happiness, and we treat ourselves with kindness and compassion. Self-kindness is not about excusing our flaws or avoiding growth. It's about recognizing that we are human. It's about accepting that we will make mistakes, that we will have bad days, and that we will fall short at times. These moments do not define our worth. They are part of the shared human experience. Being kind to ourselves means offering the same love, patience, and understanding that we would give to a close friend when they're struggling. It's the understanding that we are worthy of love and care, even when we're not perfect or when things don't go according to plan. One of the biggest obstacles to practicing self-kindness is the pervasive culture of self-criticism. For many women, we've been conditioned to believe that being hard on ourselves is a way to motivate ourselves, that if we push ourselves enough, we will achieve everything we desire. We tend to ignore the voice of self-compassion in favor of that inner critic who constantly tells us we're not enough, that we should be doing more, or that we're falling behind. This critical inner voice is not helpful. In fact, it can be incredibly damaging to our mental and emotional well-being. When we are overly critical of ourselves, we diminish our sense of self-worth and erode our confidence. We become our own worst enemy, setting impossible standards that are bound to be unmet. Self-kindness, on the other hand, allows us to see ourselves through a lens of understanding and empathy. Treating ourselves with kindness doesn't mean avoiding accountability or pretending that everything is always fine. It's not about complacency or resignation. Instead, it's about recognizing that we are doing the best we can with the resources and knowledge we have at the moment. It's about acknowledging our efforts and offering ourselves grace when things don't go as planned. Self-kindness allows us to step back and reflect on our mistakes or failures without attaching shame to them. It creates space for growth, for learning, and for moving forward without being paralyzed by fear or self-doubt. One of the most powerful aspects of self-kindness is the ability to silence our inner critic. We often believe that in order to improve ourselves, we need to be harsh or critical. But research has shown that self-compassion is a much more effective motivator than self-criticism. When we treat ourselves with kindness, we are more likely to feel empowered to make changes, take risks, and pursue our goals. Self-compassion helps us to embrace failure as a natural part of the process rather than something to fear or avoid. When we approach ourselves with kindness, we are able to learn from our mistakes instead of beating ourselves up about them. A big part of self-kindness is also recognizing the need for self-care, taking the time to nurture our minds, bodies, and souls. In the hustle of daily life, it's easy to forget about our own well-being. We can get so caught up in meeting the demands of others, whether it's at work, in our families, or in our communities, that we neglect our own needs. But self-kindness involves making our own care a priority. It's about setting aside time to rest, recharge, and do things that bring us joy and fulfillment. It could be as simple as taking a walk in nature, reading a book, enjoying a warm bath, or spending time with loved ones. Self-care is not a luxury, it's a necessity for our emotional, mental, and physical health. Without it, we risk burnout, exhaustion, and an overall sense of depletion. By prioritizing self-care, we send the message to ourselves that we are deserving of rest, relaxation, and nourishment. Another key aspect of self-kindness is forgiveness. So often we hold on to guilt or regret for past mistakes. We punish ourselves for things we've done or failed to do, and we find it difficult to let go of those feelings. But true self-kindness involves forgiving ourselves for our shortcomings, mistakes, and regrets. It's about understanding that we are not defined by our past actions and that we have the capacity to change, learn, and grow. When we forgive ourselves, we free ourselves from the weight of shame and guilt, allowing us to move forward with a sense of freedom and possibility. Self-forgiveness is essential for our healing and growth. It allows us to stop ruminating on past failures and instead focus on the present moment and the future we are creating. Self-kindness also includes celebrating our successes, no matter how small they may seem. In our pursuit of perfection, it's easy to overlook our accomplishments or brush them aside as insignificant. But when we take the time to recognize and celebrate our achievements, we build our self-esteem and reinforce the belief that we are worthy of success and happiness. Self-kindness means acknowledging the effort and dedication we put into our work, our relationships, and our personal growth. It's about being proud of ourselves and giving ourselves credit for the progress we've made. Lastly, practicing self-kindness fosters a positive relationship with ourselves. The way we treat ourselves sets the tone for how we interact with the world and others. When we are kind to ourselves, we radiate that kindness outward, creating a ripple effect in our relationships and communities. Self-kindness enables us to show up authentically without the burden of self-doubt or fear of judgment. It allows us to be present in our lives, to engage with others with compassion and empathy, and to contribute positively to the world around us. Being kind to yourself is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice, a conscious choice to prioritize your well-being and honor your humanity. It's about giving yourself the same compassion and love that you would offer to someone you care deeply about. We all deserve to be treated with kindness, especially by ourselves. When we practice self-kindness, we create a foundation for a life of fulfillment, joy, and inner peace. And from that foundation, we can go on to achieve great things and build meaningful, authentic connections with others.